You all, thank you. Shh. That's great. Thank you all for coming tonight. This is a big night for us here at the Enterprise Center. I want to begin by, thanking, a couple of people here. I think we've got probably somebody that, if I'm wrong, correct me, but the person that traveled the furthest from, to come to this event tonight is Ambassador Ofer Averon, who is the former Consul General for Israel in Atlanta for 23 years. He's doing a lot of work now with Erlanger, and a lot of as folks know or should know, is that Israel is sort of known as the startup nation. They've got a lot of medical technology and a lot of synergies between Erlanger, and he's doing work there. And so I think we welcome you here tonight. If anybody came further than Israel, please. Okay. I also have got a couple of board members here, and I want to acknowledge Enterprise Center Board. I've got a great board, and it's a great group of people, and we wouldn't be doing the work we're doing without the board. As I look around the room, there's a lot of partners here, people that we work with, in doing a lot of collaborative work and to really make the Innovation District and really to make Chattanooga, the great city it is. And so I think, the partners are in this room. And most importantly, I want to thank the Enterprise Center staff. We've got a group of very energetic, passionate people in the work we do. And we've got some really, a lot of the work that goes on for this Innovation District, but also in our other programs of digital equity and research and application developments, they're here. And I want to acknowledge that, again, we would not be here today if it wasn't for them. 4.5 years ago, I was asked by Mayor Burke to co-chair, along with David Blitz, who is my current chairman now, and Sidney Crisp, who's a high-level executive at Unum, to chair a Chattanooga Forward Task Force, on gig, technology, and entrepreneurship. I'd known the mayor for some time, but I'd really never worked with him. And as we got through sort of presenting the gig, technology, and transfer, I saw his commitment to a greater Chattanooga community for all. And it was specifically as we sort of move into the innovation economy, is to have a mayor that was committed to sort of moving this city forward, to basically be one of really looking to the 21st century or the 22nd century, in innovation. Today is an anniversary and a celebration of sorts. It was actually 4 years ago, plus one day, when we released the Chattanooga Gig, Technology, and Entrepreneurship Task Force Report. And I'll read one little sentence in it. It called for an innovation district. And it said to name an implementation committee to assess the necessary components and partners of Chattanooga Innovation District, its most advantageous locational beginning, and specific steps for creating the first innovation district in a mid-sized city. Those were not words that came lightly, but were ones that we worked with the mayor and the task force to sort of create. For the last 4 years, we've exceeded all expectations, and tonight I think we chart a beginning for the next 3 years. I'm here tonight to tell you that Andy Burke and the city have been an awesome partner, and we wouldn't have the EDNI here, or serious validations from the Kauffman Foundation, the National League of Cities, the Brookings Institution, and many, many international and national press. Without being any more wordy, I introduce you to Andy Burke, our mayor, to kick off the release of the Innovation District Framework Plan.
Well, thanks so much. And let me first say that, you were talking about a little bit about Erlanger. There were many moments over the last few months where I had Erlanger on standby for Ken. He was working in overdrive. He had too much coffee. He had too much I don't know what other things. He was talking to everybody in this city. If you were sitting still somewhere, he slid into a booth at a restaurant, talked to you about this plan. Ken Hayes and Ann Coulter, who have been by his side at every moment for this plan, these are two giants of our city. They have over the course of the last couple of decades, not only planned but done a tremendous amount to move our city forward. I'm going to get to introduce Ann in just a few minutes, but before we get started, please give them a round of applause for what they've done for this and the work they put into it. So I'm going to back up to, like Ken did, and say a few words about how we got here before we talk about how we move forward. If you look at the politics of our country, if you talk to people on the street, read the news, it's dominated by questions of the haves and the have-nots. People who have a tremendous amount and people who it feels like have very little. And that's not just true, by the way, among specific people. That's true in large groups, and it's true in cities. And so a few years ago, what became clear to me and I think others in our city is that we did not want to be a place that was left out. We did not want to be an also-ran, because as you look around the country, the places that are creating things, that are making things, that are innovating, those are the places which are being rewarded with prosperity, and the other places just aren't. And so we wanted to be a place where those who were making products, those who were designing new things, we would be able to design those, we'd be able to be compensated for that. And not only that, but if you look at the world today, more and more the places that are innovating are also the places that are making the things. And so you could see a path where we would have all kinds of jobs that were in the innovation economy. And if we weren't purposeful about doing that, we would be one of the cities that was left out. On top of that, we had this amazing asset, right, in the world's fastest, cheapest, most pervasive internet. And it felt a little bit like we were a car that couldn't quite get into gear. We were revving our engines, a lot of stuff was going on, but it just didn't seem like it was clicking like it should. And so we put together Chattanooga Forward, a task force on gig tech and entrepreneurship, and as Ken said, pulled together this report, and Sydney and David and Ken pulled not only the report together, but a path to execute on it. And that brings us a little bit to where we are today. Because what we know is, to be this place that is an innovation district and an innovation city, we have to have this plan and we have to execute on it. Here's what's important. People and places drive economies. Say that again. People and places drive economies. In the past, we spent a lot of time in Chattanooga talking about places. That's still important. I don't want to leave that out. What this report really starts talking about is the way that we add people and places together, because talent wants to be in dynamic places that has a lot going on. And for us to make sure that we have that kind of place, we have to be purposeful about it. Today at the Enterprise Center board meeting, Ken said that 60,000 people have come through this in, I think, 2.5 years. 60,000 people. That's incredible. And some of my proudest moments have been when those in our community who I didn't even know and didn't even expect it felt like this building and the innovation district was theirs. A couple of weeks ago, I was at a Miller Park visioning session with students from the STEM school on the other side over there. They made me, by the way, a little park with their, I don't know how they laser cut it, what they did, but it was incredible. To see them and to hear them talk about this place as theirs, that's what you want to see. We know that inclusion is not just a moral imperative, it is now an economic imperative as well. Because for us to create those kind of places, we need everybody in our city. We need everybody in our city participating in this economy. That is critical for us. So students, business people, researchers, maybe even some government employees, all of us have to be part of this innovation economy, and we need to build a place that attracts them. So as I turn it over to Ann, here's what I want you to know. Number one is city government's going to do its part of this plan. We're going to do our part of this plan. I've talked to many people in this audience. I know many of you are committed to do yours. We need this kind of activity to continue our growth as a city. We are stepping up. Our city is changing categories. I can feel it. We are more and more a part of this innovation economy today, and it's only going to grow. The second piece I think is critical is, as Ann presents this plan, I want you to remember that we are not a city that just plans. We are a city that executes. That's the difference between us and other places. I've used these kind of drawings before in my speeches when I go to other cities and talk about it. The drawings that don't look like this, what they look like is the waterfront, which was once a drawing that looked like this and now looks like it does today. So we are going to do this. We are a city of creators. We've created products and places and institutions. Products like Coca-Cola bottling, places like the waterfront, institutions like River City and the Enterprise Center. That's the city that we are. That's the city that this plan shows that we can be again. I am happy to be here tonight to see part of this plan be introduced to y'all. It's exciting, and I want to introduce Ann Coulter to take us through it. Thank you very much.
I don't think I've ever been called a giant before. It makes me feel taller, just standing up here. Welcome. I mean, what a room, golly. And I think you brought the last little bit of the day's sunshine, or the only little bit of the day's sunshine with you when you got here tonight. And it's great to look around this room and see so many faces that have been involved in this process for almost a year. Some of you really rolling up your sleeves a lot and being involved in meetings, and a lot of you who've attended the public sessions and given us lots of input. So thank you. This is your plan too, and we hope that we've honored what you had to say in the presentation of what you're going to see tonight. And I'll also say that we've just got a few minutes to go through what can be viewed as a really big plan. But first of all, I want to thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank the many of you who have helped. And in particular, I want to thank the people who are on our working group for this process, who've been working now almost a year from the selection of the consultants through all the public meetings on through tonight. And that's Eric Myers on the working group with the Chattanooga Design Studio. Kim White, who was here earlier today and got a preview of this with River City Company. Richard Brown at UTC, who has been most helpful. And Stacy Richardson, who also saw a preview of this earlier today. We could not have done it without them. And then also to the Enterprise Center staff, who Ken thanked, I have to personally thank. Nothing you're going to see tonight, including where these chairs are, the people that greeted you at the door, that provided the food, as well as made this plan a reality, would have been possible without the staff of the Enterprise Center. A lot of them are here tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And there are some that aren't in this room because they're in a conference room back there working with some folks on a digital equity program. So it's been a fabulous group to work with. Excuse me. And let me also say a little bit about how the meeting's going to go. Eugenia's here keeping time on me. We're going to try to keep it to 15, 16 minutes, although you'll see from this and you'll see from the written report you're going to get later a copy of as you leave the place tonight. I could talk a lot longer and want to talk a lot longer and want to, take questions and hear ideas, which we're going to do in the space next door over here later. So about 15, 16 minutes. I'm going to talk about the highlights of the planning process, and then Mary Stargell, who's the Director of Innovation District Programs for the Enterprise Center, is going to tell you a little bit more about how we're going to start taking steps toward implementing the plan and how you can get involved. And she'll tell you more about what was in your seat when you sat down today and make a call to action and an appeal to ongoing help. This is not the end of anything. This is the start of a lot more things. So that's how we're going to go tonight. I'll introduce Mary in a few minutes, and then we'll invite you to go next door, get some more refreshments if you like. We're going to have some boards put up around the room that are images from the plan. You'll be able to get a hard copy of the plan, and others of us who've been working on the plan will be around the room. We'll be here later on to take additional input and hear your questions. So this is the Innovation District. You are all in it, in this building right here, the Edney Innovation Center. It's 140 acres in the heart of the downtown. It is this circle. It's a quarter-mile walk distance from the intersection of M.L. King and Georgia Avenue. This is, of course, north to south. Here's M.L. King Boulevard, which we'll talk about, which bisects the district east to west. This is the public libraries in here, PEF. We call a lot of these organizations our innovation economy generators. River City Company, CoLab, of course, Society of Work, Public Library, Lamppost Group, Chamber of Commerce. I could go on and mention others. And that's the reason we initially named this district, realizing we had to have a place to start. We would expect it may grow over time as we expand the innovation economy in the downtown area as a way to just get started that includes the proximity, the major anchors and assets of the innovation economy in proximity to one another. I'm going to show you a little bit of a timeline. As Ken mentioned, the Innovation District was announced in January of 2015. On the same day, we issued an RFP for the development of this building. We began occupying this building in October of that year. So these are just a few of the things, just a sample. You'll see some things I'm sure you had a hand in making happen along this timeline since that time. Of course, prior to that, a lot of other things had happened to lay the groundwork for the creation of the Innovation District, particularly our gigabit internet service and smart grid that EPB provided us prior to that time. So these are just some of the milestones. But as we looked at these and lived with these and saw these things happen, it really convinced us that we needed to plan for the Innovation District in a more deliberate and public way. And that's when we began the planning process last year. You'll see the last two things on the timeline. In February, just last month, CoLab announces Chattanooga's selection as one of only 5 cities in the U.S. that are on this year's Rise of the Rest tour, which I'm sure folks from CoLab would be happy to tell you a little bit more about. It's going to be quite something later on in May. And then, as of tonight, the formal release of the plan. As we began engaging stakeholders and the public in their dreams and visions and ideas for the Innovation District and what it would become, they helped us hammer out a basic vision statement. It's rather broad, but it's just basically that the Innovation District should be a place that adds unique and authentic value to the city around it. In the process, the public helped us articulate certain values that they wanted this district to exhibit, the kind of values that would guide our decisions. There are a lot of decisions to be made about the Innovation District and how it moves forward over the next 5 to 10 years. And these values will underpin how those decisions are made, and we hope provide inspiration to all of us as we work on this common vision. And these are those values. First of all, that the district should exhibit the highest degree of diversity and inclusion. We heard that over and over. That will make this district stronger than probably anything else could for the future. The importance of arts and culture as an absolute cornerstone of the district. We talk about innovation. We're talking about imagination and creativity. Arts and culture generate that and support that and promote that more than anything else. We heard also over and over that people see the education opportunities inherent in this district and what goes on here. And it's a kind of a two-sided coin. We need talent developed in the district. We need our local talent, K through 12 and post-secondary students and educators, to be a part of what we're doing here, to help us make it better. And we want to create a very powerful pipeline for career pathways for students in our county. And the Innovation District can do more to make that happen, and we're going to be looking at those ways. Innovation is another value, that we should showcase innovation approaches to social, economic, business, and civic challenges. The importance of public life. Look at the public space around the district. We live in the public. We know that innovation thrives on collision and collaboration that might not otherwise happen. That says high-quality public spaces and a place to be a civic member of the public. And then finally, that we should be We should use urban and digital infrastructure as an urban test bed for smart city researchers, and our university, UTC, is already fulfilling that value and helping us think about it in some more mature ways. So this is the Innovation District Framework Plan. I'll orient you a little bit. We've been working with this map for a long time, so we know when there's something, we kind of know where we are in here, but I bet some of you may not. This is the Innovation District. Here we are again in the Edney, so this is Market Street. There's ML King Boulevard. The buildings in the brightest colors are those that in the plan are targeted to be new buildings or redeveloped, rethought buildings. And the lighter colored ones are existing buildings where there's some new ideas about what could happen in those buildings. And then you see all the nice green trees and so forth connecting those public spaces. So in the planning process, trying to put opportunities and values on a map is what we tried to do with this area. We articulated 3 parts of the district: Civic Crossroads, the ML King Corridor, and the downtown campus as 3 sort of thematic areas where certain opportunities sort of made themselves more manifest to us. The ML King Corridor connecting those 2. I'm going to talk about those in a little more detail. So we'll start with Civic Crossroads. Civic Crossroads is the geographic area that there's Miller Park once it gets finished with all that nice green space. This is the Civic Forum block. It's currently a parking lot, public library, and Broad Street, and this is the current TVA raised above ground park. So the idea for Civic Crossroads here is that these are large, expansive public spaces, some of our widest streets, and the potential is great here to really realize the potential of connecting and working those civic areas connected in a way better. So as a Civic Crossroads. The 3 main ideas we'll talk about here are the Civic Forum block, which is this block, innovation-oriented offices, and innovations in technology. The Civic Forum block, in case you don't recognize it with this big old fancy modern building on it, that's the block currently. So here's the public library, EPB, TVA, and there's the Edney Innovation Center. So an entire surface parking lot in a very important position in our city. So ideas that emerged during the planning process included something that's probably a little longer term, maybe in that 5 to 10 year period. Love it if it didn't take quite that long to produce, but something that might be on the order of a data informatics center or a transportation research hub, some kind of digital research oriented building. There actually was an idea very similar to that emerged in a planning process back in 2014 called Urban Design Challenge. Some of you may remember that image from that. Innovation-oriented offices, you know, people work differently in offices today. We know that, and the most competitive office buildings are those that respond to how people want to work together, particularly to be able to collaborate in flexible spaces. This is a photograph of CoLab space in the middle, down on the first floor. This one we nabbed off the internet from another city as an example. We think, for example, buildings such as the Crystal and Talon buildings up on ML King Boulevard are really ready for some of this kind of thinking. We've already engaged representatives of the owner of the building who are exploring some of those ideas. Innovations in technology refers to the kind of things you can now do in the public realm using technology that you couldn't do even just a few years ago. Think about the lights around West End. Everybody loves those. It wasn't very long ago, technology without LED lights and lightweight, energy efficient, all that just really didn't make sense. So this is an example of an intersection in Europe. We think one of the places we might start some of these things would be in front of the public library. Here's a very fine example from our own city with River City Company's Passageway project. The idea here is to help people think differently about how they experience public spaces and help give them ideas and spark their imagination and create new memories. Second area I want to talk to you about is the downtown campus, and that's more on the eastern end of the Innovation District. This is currently Bessie Smith Cultural Center. That might be the location of the place that is generally known the best in this district. Let's see, one more. There's a location of Camp House right there on the corner. That's another well-known one. Three main ideas here are, as the title suggests, how do we better integrate the work of the university as its entry into this part of the Innovation District by occupying the MAP building has brought them closer to the Innovation District. The UTC MAP block is another, the three main ideas are the opportunity for mixed income housing in this district, the opportunities that surround the MAP building that's currently occupied by the university, and the potential for repurposing and street level activation of underutilized buildings and vacant lots. I've gotten the 15-minute flash, so I'll try to go not too fast for you, but get it all in there. Mixed income housing options, we know from innovation districts in other cities that one of the big challenges of innovation districts is maintaining an adequate stock of housing for all income levels. If you're going to be committed to diversity and inclusion and flexible space and active street life, you've got to provide housing for people at every station in life. So we've suggested we might start that on a lot here on 10th Street that's actually owned by the city. It's a one-story building currently certainly underutilized. We're thinking something about on that scale that you see in the photograph in another city. And here's another example. Redevelopment of the MAP block, just in 2016, UTC occupied the MAP building, which is a former state office building. Around it is a lot of vacant land, parking lots. We're suggesting that for the good of the district, that needs to fill in over time with mixed uses, probably campus-oriented, but definitely active at the street level. You see an example of that kind of a space at another college there, and one here. It shows you what you can do with a mix of old and new buildings. And then lastly, on the downtown campus, there's a lot of buildings in this part of the district and lots that are vacant and underutilized. It's probably the greatest concentration within the district anywhere. You see Camp House here, and then on the right, one you might not be so familiar with. It only opened in October, and that's Bingo's Market. First time in probably over 2 decades that a storefront at Patton Towers has been open to the street. Think back about the Camp House. It opened the month before the Innovation District was named. You know, can you even remember what it looked like before the Camp House was in there? That's what can happen when you start to activate ground floor buildings. We're suggesting that this one, the AT&T building that does not have the mural, but has 6-story brick and windows and beautiful stone at the ground level, is one that could be right for that kind of treatment. This shows a convention center in another city. You know, convention centers are often very unfriendly at the street level. You got to walk a long way around and find a place to go in. This one was retrofitted. And then the third and last area is the M.L. King Cultural Corridor. I've been talking too much today. And this corridor links UTC. This is both sort of real and metaphorical when you think about what's connected there. UTC with all of its resource and talent and technology, and on the other end in the district, EPB with the smart grid and the gig and all the resources there. And in between, this incredible cultural spine that's unique in our city, and a lot of cities would kill to have an asset like this, frankly, particularly within an innovation district. So the two main ideas here are the M.L. King Cultural Corridor as the cultural anchor of the district and the Smart City Research Corridor. I'm really pleased tonight to see a number of the board members of the Bessie Smith Cultural Center here tonight, and some former board members as well. And they have really stepped up to the conversation here about what's the future of the Bessie Smith Cultural Center on this block? What do they want to be that a new building, a new vision for the work of the center and the African American Museum could do? So this suggests that the lot that's all currently in public ownership, which is a great opportunity, could be redeveloped over time for a mix of uses. This is an example of a performing arts center in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which sort of looks like something you might imagine happening on the block where the Bessie Smith Cultural Center is, coming more out to the street, a modern building, and still with a nice performance and gathering lawn around it. This is a children's arts center in Maine. That is another way of thinking about it. And then Smart City Research Corridor, these are kind of ordinary looking photos. You think, well, that's no big new building. What does that show? But this is cutting edge smart city research. And thanks to UTC, we have these kind of things already going on that we envision centering themselves on this corridor. To the left is research. Both of these are grants received by UTC from National Science Foundation in conjunction with other universities. Research is being centered here. This one's on autonomous vehicles, and this one is ongoing research with regard to ground penetrating radar. All right, now how do we do all this? And I just hit the highlights of what we've got to do, what we're planning to do with your help. So as we move now from planning to implementation, these are the categories of things that we want to organize our work. These are four, we call them our strategies, 4 strategies: people and programming, public realm enhancements, innovation ecosystem supports, and building and redevelopment priorities. And you'll see more about them in the report that you'll be able to take with you later tonight. So under people and programming, these are the kind of things that we're going to work on as part of those strategies with your help. Engaging district assets for learning and educational opportunities, increasing diversity and inclusiveness, broadening and creating festival and event programming, and maximize arts and cultural heritage programming. Public realm enhancements is pretty much what you'd expect. Streets, plazas, sidewalks, parks, activating them, programming them, and making sure that we maintain and even increase the multimodal transportation options in the district. Innovation ecosystem supports, which has a lot to do with how do we continue to grow this innovation economy and this startup economy so that it continues to add fuel to the district economy and beyond. And then building and redevelopment priorities. I mentioned rethinking traditional office space, providing more housing for a range of income levels, and promoting the redevelopment of underutilized buildings, vacant lots, and increasing activity at the ground floor level. This is where you can find out more about the plan. It is online, so you can take a hard copy with you tonight, and you can look at it online. And now to talk about next steps with regard to implementation and how you could get involved, I'm going to turn it over to Mary Stargell, who's our Director of Innovation District Programs. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Anne. So we are so excited to have shared with you tonight the framework plan and to have given you an overview. And as I look around the room tonight, I see people from all over our city and our community. People are doing all different things. And I start to wonder why you're here in Chattanooga. And some of you may say, I grew up here. Chattanooga is my home. And others of you would say, I went to school, but I came back for a job or for family or for friends. Others would say, I love the quality of life and what Chattanooga has to offer. But I imagine that if I started to ask you, there would be a similar answer that would come up, that Chattanooga is a place that you know you can make a difference, that you can invest in, and you can be part of the change that happens here. To be honest, that's why we're all here tonight. You're curious, but you're also invested. And we know that as you walk around, both in the Innovation District and our city, you have ideas for how to make it better and what you would like to see. And so that's part of the next steps, is you getting involved. As Anne mentioned, there is an actual tangible plan that you can take home with you tonight, or if you're more of a digital person, there's an online version. But we encourage you to dig deeper. These words were not just thrown on a page so we could put a check mark that we have a plan, and they were very intentionally written and thought through, talked with partners around the community about what we hoped for the future of the Innovation District. So I encourage you to read it, highlight it, ask questions about it later on. But the next part is to get involved. And you may say, that's great, what does that look like for me? In the next couple of weeks, we're going to be looking at what the implementation of this plan looks like. It's a long-term vision, but it kicks off with both energy and ideas and digging into the question of what does success look like for the 4 strategies you saw, for the framework plan map that you saw up on that board. What does success look like? And so we'll be gathering in working groups to create measurable outcomes, to create a timeline of success for how we can implement these strategies, but also to look at how our community can get involved. And so one example is the first strategy, and the first objective in that strategy is diversity and inclusion in our community. And as we heard from you, it's a very important not only value but objective of this plan, and it's a cornerstone for what we want to see in this innovation district. So we need a group of people to come forward and say, hey, I want to figure out what the next steps are. I want to go to other communities and learn how they're doing diversity and inclusion to bring that back into our district. I want to throw some events to inspire people to think differently about that in our innovation district and in our community. And so that's an example of one way that people can get involved. But we want you to raise your hand and say, hey, I have an idea. I'd like to be on the ground doing the work. And so we have placed a handout. It's either in your hand or you're sitting on it. But we'd like for you to just take a look at that. And we know that we've handed you a lot of information, strategies, and objectives, but we've outlined what the work we'll be doing over the next 3 years looks like. And so we'd like for you, if something stood out to you tonight, as Ann was talking, whether it was on the map or the strategies, we'd like for you to tick a box and say, hey, I'm interested in learning more. I'm interested in getting involved in the conversation and the work that's going to be done. We know that some of you may look at this and say, actually I have a lot of questions or feedback, and that's what the back of that handout is for you, because this is an open community dialogue. This is the 3rd community meeting. We haven't done this in a silo. You've given us your input, and we want that to continue. So I encourage you to take some time as the rest of the evening to both dialogue with us about how you can get involved, but also some of what you thought. And then this forum is also going to be online because we know that not everyone in Chattanooga is in this room right now, and that you represent a lot of families, neighborhoods, schools, organizations, companies, and we want you to take this plan back into your community and to share with people you know are really excited about these same strategies, and we want you to be an ambassador to help get people involved. So there'll be an online form where people can fill out the same information all along the way to say, hey, I'm excited about this, and I'm ready to get involved. So the rest of the evening is just open for you to grab some more snacks and drinks, and we will be among the boards over here to discuss and hear from you. So thank you for coming, and we look forward to working with you in the Innovation District.